The very last verse of chapter 2 is jarring. It sort of hangs there like a dangling participle, or seems to be attached to chapter 2 as kind of a concluding unscientific postscript, where we read these words: "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed." Now, how can you read that and not step back from the text and say, what's that all about? What's the significance of the fact that God created man and woman naked, and in their nudity, in their bare exposure, there was no embarrassment, no shame? Well, one of the interesting things that we can do in Scripture is examine the nakedness motif throughout the whole of the Bible. It's a fascinating subject. I have a chapter on it in my book, If There's a God, Why Are There Atheists? Because it's profound how the metaphor of nakedness functions in biblical and redemptive history. I'm supposed to speak of barriers to intimacy, and I loved what Ken said, that intimate marriage is indeed a redundancy. If marriage is marriage, there is, by the very nature of the union, a certain inescapable intimacy. Although Ken indicated there can be degrees of that intimacy, and that intimacy can be the occasion of the great blessedness of marriage, or it can also be the occasion of its destruction. Why is it that Adam and Eve were described as being naked and unashamed, and what in the world does that have to do with a godly marriage? As I look out in this great church this afternoon, I notice that there are many people here that I know, but also many people that I don't know. And I don't know who your favorite football team is and all of that. I know that everybody's dressed in their own individual and unique way. But as I look out here in this congregation, I've not yet seen anyone who's nude. You're all dressed, and I'm glad for that. Because ever since the fall, there's a certain shame or embarrassment that attaches itself to nakedness. Now, I know we live in a culture this side of the sexual revolution where we have a narcissistic, infantile, puerile preoccupation with human nudity, so that pornography becomes a multi-billion-dollar business, and magazines go over the edge with portraying the naked human body, male and female. We see constant nudity displayed on the movie screens, and so on. We even have this phenomenon in our culture where we have major sporting events that are interrupted by streakers, where somebody who's halfway out of their mind takes off their clothes and runs across the football field. But I've always noticed that in spite of this preoccupation with nudity, that shower curtains and window blinds are still staples in our commercial environment. And I also notice that those who like to don their clothes at football games and go on the field are called streakers rather than strollers. But again, what does this have to do with intimacy in marriage? Ever since Eden, ever since we became uncomfortable with our nakedness, Ever since the moment that we did not want everybody in the world to know what we really are. Ever since we've gone into hiding, there's been a kind of primordial nostalgia, a desire to find a place where once more we can be naked and unashamed. A place where we can be known without a mask, without concealment, without hiding in the shadows. And God has provided that place in the sanctity of marriage. God has provided a locale where once again His creatures can take off their clothes, be naked and unashamed. You know, we've been talking about the revolution of marriage, and more people are living together now instead of being married and so on. And we can look at that and say, tisk, tisk, that's so immoral, which it is. It's treason against the Creator. But in addition to the immorality of that is the abject foolishness of it. I can't believe a woman would make herself naked in front of a man who has never committed himself before God for her whole life and her whole welfare. She's in the most vulnerable situation she could possibly be in on this planet. And the man says, oh, come on, be naked. It's safe. It's not safe. And people are getting violated beyond belief. But when the Bible uses the metaphor of nakedness, it is not talking simply about the absence of clothes. I find that the more I know her, it really is true, the more I know her, the more I love her. And the more I want to know about her. And I have found out this out too, that I believe that every human being in this world has a life that is worth writing a best-selling novel about. There's so much drama, so much interest, so much complex profundity in every single human being in this world that if we would set ourselves to the task of getting to know them, we would have more than a wealth of material to write a dramatic novel. But that's not the priority. I heard my son this morning, and I know that he lives what he was talking about. I've never seen anybody like it, who has made it his life's vocation to be a husband and a father. He didn't get it from me. I don't know where he got it. But it's something really to behold. But we will spend a fortune and years of our work to study a particular subject, to get a degree in a certain field, so that we can earn our living in a particular endeavor. It might be mathematics, it might be philosophy, it might be English, it might be economics, it might be business, whatever it is. We apply so much effort to learning the discipline that we're studying, to prepare ourselves to life. But we won't walk across the living room to learn who our wife is or who our husband is. The greatest treasure that God has given to us in this world. You know, before God ever says, husbands, love your wives, the mandate in creation basically is this: husbands, know your wives. Like Adam knew Eve. Like Abraham knew Sarah. Like Jesus knows the church.